Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. In the name of God, the most gracious and most merciful. Welcome to Lady Khadija radiallahu anha. May God be pleased with her online college live A-level lesson, year 2 pure maths. Today it's adding and subtracting fractions, which is a revision of GCSE and year 1. Let's begin. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. In the name of God, the most gracious, the most merciful. Adding two fractions, we need to make sure the denominator is the same. How can we make the denominator the same? We can either look through the multiples, or there's an easier way that we're going to tend to use a lot more in algebra. Let me just check the sound is coming through. So the easier way is to really start with the first fraction and take a look at what's at the bottom of the other fraction and times by that. So we're going to times by 4 here and times by 4 here. And then now we're looking at the second fraction. Just take another look back at the first fraction and times by that. So the second fraction, we're looking back at the first and we're thinking, okay, let's times by the 3. And that way it's a bit longer, but you'll get the denominator to be the same and it'll work for much harder algebra questions. So the first one will become 4 over 12. And the second fraction, which we're timesing by 3, we're going to have 9 over 12. The rest is just normal from here. And this works for adding and subtracting. Same technique. Just look at what's at the bottom of the other fraction, times by that, top and bottom. So then we end up with 13 over 12, which we can then change to 1 and 1/12. So let's see that with a little bit of algebra, and let's go with a over 2x as your first fraction, b over 3x as your second fraction, and common multiple at the bottom. That method is the best method, but we just want, in this particular example, because it's so simple, it's quite an easy one, but I want you to get used to the harder method because we're going to be dealing with a lot of harder fractions in a second, in probably a couple of lessons. So here we're looking at the first fraction and just taking a sneak preview at the second fraction, and we're saying, okay, let's times by what I see on the other side. So that's 3x, and that's whatever you do to the bottom you have to do to the top. And then you look at the second fraction, take a sneak at the first one. What was there? It was 2x, so let's times by 2x on the top and at the bottom. And then let's work it out. So at the top now we'll have 3ax over, and that's going to be 6x squared. You don't even have to multiply out the brackets at the bottom. If you can leave them there as they are, but I'm just going to multiply them out. 6x squared on the bottom. That's your first fraction. If you can do the second one quicker than me, because I'm drawing it on the screen, and let me know what's going to be at the top while I fill in the bottom. It's going to be 6x squared again. Okay, so hopefully at the top you've got some answer which isn't that hard. Let's see what you've got. It's going to be 2bx. And now denominators are the same, so we're ready to add, and that's going to work out to be 6x squared on the bottom, 3ax plus 2bx on the top, and then you just want to simplify. So it looks like there's an x on both terms on the top, and we've got an x on the bottom. That's not a surprise, so we can take off an x from everything, and that's your final answer, 3a plus 2b at the top over 6x. Okay, so why was I going into that technique? Because we're going to need it for these kind of questions now. So we've got first fraction is 2 and x plus 3 on the bottom, and we're subtracting 1 over x minus 1 on the bottom, x plus 1 on the bottom. Just if you haven't got the book already, please try to get the book and you'll be able to follow through every single example. It's the Pearson edXL Year 2 Pure Maths book. If you're doing another board, then this is still a very, very good book to get through, because all the exam boards, they cover pretty much the same material by the end of the 2 years, and this book explains things really well. So I want the same denominator on both, and I'm just going to work on the first fraction, take a sneak look at the next fraction and say there's an x plus 1 there. So what I now want to do is take the x plus 1 and I'm just going to put it on the bottom and the top. So I'm going to times by x plus 1 on the top and the bottom of the first fraction. Then I look at the second fraction and I'm thinking, okay, now what was at the bottom of the first fraction? So I'm looking over back here and I'm seeing there was an x plus 3, so I want to times by x plus 3 and extend that numerator. Whatever you times on the bottom, you have to times on the top, so x plus 3, and then we're ready to take away. So we've got both fractions with the same denominator. That means I can keep the denominator. Like I said, you don't have to expand out the brackets, and in this case it's easier not to, because it's just going to be too much work and we don't really need to. On the top we've got 2x plus 1, so that we can expand. That's quite easy, to 2x plus 2. Now be careful here with subtracting. That subtraction applies to both things on the top. So when we expand this out, if that subtraction wasn't there, I'd end up with 1x plus 3. But this subtraction has to apply to both bits. So I'm going to have a minus 1x and a minus 3. Then you can simplify the 2x minus the 1x, that'll just become x. The 2 take away the 3 will become minus 1. So on the top I'll have x minus 1. And on the bottom I'll have my two brackets, x plus 3 and x plus 1. Same as before. So there's your final answer. And then the last one we're going to take a look at today. This is, we're just working through example 7, by the way, so if you want to keep up on the book, that's 3x plus 1 minus, we've got 4x and x squared minus 1 on the bottom. I'll just change that in a second, and there's a minus in between. So 3 over x plus 1, just like the kind of fractions we had before. This one's a bit new, so we've got an x squared minus 1 on the bottom. The way we're going to deal with that is we're going to spot that this is the difference of two squares. X squared is a square number, 1 is a squared number. So we can change that into double brackets with x and 1 and just the sign plus and minus being the difference. So let's take this as it is, and then we're going to have a minus, but we are going to change this. So let's change that to, instead of x squared minus 1, I'm going to take that out, and I'm going to have double brackets as x plus 1 and x minus 1. That's my difference of two squares expansion. And now we're just going to see, okay, what do I need on the first bracket to make the denominator the same, and what do I need on the second? Well, I've got x plus 1 here, and I already have x plus 1 on the second one. So the only thing I need more is the x minus 1. So you don't want to multiply by more than you have to, otherwise there's too much cancelling at the end, as we found out in an earlier example. So we just want to take whatever we need to add on, so that's your x minus 1, to make that have everything the second fraction has, but it's going to be at the top and the bottom. And then now looking at the second fraction, what was there on the first? There was an x plus 1, but we already have that here, so there's no need to put it on again. And then the x minus 1 matches this now because of the work we did here. So nothing we need to change on the second fraction. So we're ready to expand out the brackets if we need to, but it's easier on the bottom just to leave it as it is. The top can be expanded, so I've got 3x minus 3 minus, now this minus applies to the 4x, and then simplify, we can take the minus 3 to the end and combine these two into minus x. So that's your answer on the last one. A little bit tricky, the last one, but this is the kind of level you need to get to. So let's just see if anyone was if anyone followed that. So this is the question. We need to subtract the two fractions. What did we do first? Have a think. Write down in the chat window what you think. Okay, first thing was to spot the second fraction has got difference of two squares, so we just want to have that as the full double brackets. Next thing, we want to make the denominators the same, so we'll take a look at we're working on the first fraction, and we're thinking, okay, what else do I need from the second fraction, from the other fraction, to make it have everything that has. So I've got x plus 1, and the other one has x plus 1, but the x minus 1 is needed. So that goes at the top and the bottom. Now working on the second fraction, I take a look at the first and I see, okay, what's there on the first that I don't already have? Nothing. I've got both things, the x plus 1 and the x minus 1. So that's denominator is sorted, that's fine. And then expand out the brackets at the top and simplify it, and that's your answer. Okay, good. Please try and practice that, and we're going to work a lot on these kind of fractions to do the next topic, which is not revision anymore, but it will be a year 2 topic that you haven't done before, for partial fractions, and it really builds on this. Okay, see you in the next lesson, 9 p.m. Monday to Thursday. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Peace be with you and the blessings of God.